That plane, which is confirmed to be a Phenom 100, crashed into the driveway of this home that is right behind us that is actually still smoldering, engulfing it into flames along with two other homes in the area.
We have new information in that breaking news story from Gaithersburg tonight, where a plane has crashed into a neighborhood.
The National Transportation Safety Board and officials in Montgomery County held a news conference just a short time ago, and we learned a number of things. Here's what we know. 6 people died in this crash. 3 victims were on the plane. 3 were inside a home, and many are wondering right now, and the question they want to know is, what caused this plane to crash?
On December 8, 2014, at about 10:40 a.m., an Embraer Phenom 100 airplane stalled on approach to Montgomery County Airport in Gaithersburg, Maryland. It crashed down into a residential neighborhood about a half-mile from the airport, colliding with 3 houses. The crash ignited a fire, which consumed the airplane and one of the houses. All 3 people aboard the airplane were killed, as well as 3 additional people that were inside the house that caught fire. Aboard the plane was Dr. Michael Rosenberg, the founder and CEO of Health Decisions, a clinical research organization located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Joining him was Chijioke Agbuka, an employee of Health Decisions, and Dr. David Hartman, an executive at Nuventra Pharma Sciences, a pharmaceutical company in Durham, North Carolina. The 3 were on a business trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with Federal Food and Drug Administration officials. On the morning of December 8th, the 3 men met at Horace Williams Airport in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It was a cold day. In the early hours of the morning, the temperature was minus 20 degrees Celsius, or minus 4 Fahrenheit, with wind gusts as strong as 25 miles per hour. They boarded their plane, an Embraer EMB 500, also known as a Phenom 100. The EMB 500 is classified as a light business jet and features dual Pratt & Whitney turbofan engines that can propel the aircraft at cruise speeds of 400 knots up to a range of 1,300 miles, with room for 4 to 8 passengers depending on its arrangement, and a toilet. Their pilot for this quick flight was none other than Dr. Rosenberg himself. Dr. Rosenberg was an amateur pilot, but he had almost 40 years of experience and more than 4,500 flight hours under his belt. This was a trip he had done many times before. At 9:45 a.m., the plane took off en route to Montgomery County Airport outside of Washington, D.C. According to the cockpit voice and data recorder, the early portions of the flight were uneventful. At 9:56 a.m., Dr. Rosenberg asked if his passengers were warm enough, joking, "Sorry we don't have a stewardess today." At 10 a.m., Dr. Hartman, who was seated in the cockpit next to Dr. Rosenberg, remarked on the weather, saying, "Looks like we're in the clouds," which prompted Dr. Rosenberg to activate the plane's 2 ice protection systems, the engine anti-ice system and the wing and horizontal stabilizer de-ice system. However, for unknown reasons, Dr. Rosenberg deactivated both ice protection systems just 2 minutes later. At 10:08 a.m., a message from the automated weather observing system was transmitted over the radio, stating that the current temperature was minus 1 degree Celsius and that the overcast ceiling was at an altitude of 2,800 feet. The EMB 500 airplane flight manual requires the ice protection systems to be turned on while passing through the overcast layer at these temperatures. Still, Dr. Rosenberg did not reactivate these systems. At 10:11 a.m., the plane began its descent from 23,000 feet. At 10:21 a.m., Dr. Rosenberg contacted air traffic control at Montgomery County Airport and requested to land. The controller asked Dr. Rosenberg to verify that he had received the current weather observation from the automated weather observing system, and Dr. Rosenberg confirmed that he had. At 10:39 a.m., the plane was 5 miles from the destination, and Dr. Rosenberg adjusted the flaps of the aircraft to reduce its speed for landing. At 10:40 a.m., passenger Dr. Hartman again remarked on the weather, noting that it was snowing. By 10:41 and 12 seconds, the plane's speed had decreased to 115 knots on approach to the landing. As the speed decreased, the autopilot system pitched the nose of the airplane up to maintain its path to the airport runway. In doing so, the airspeed continued to decrease. By 10:41 and 31 seconds, the airspeed had decreased to 92 knots, well below the minimum airspeed for the EMB 500 in icy conditions. Dr. Rosenberg attempted to increase power to the engine to stop the deceleration, but the airspeed continued to decrease. At 10:41 and 36 seconds, an oral stall warning began enunciating in the cockpit, and the plane started rolling wildly side to side. The plane was stalling, and it was too late for Dr. Rosenberg to recover. At 10:41 and 55 seconds, the plane rolled more than 100 degrees to the right and impacted the neighborhood below. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation into the crash concluded that the pilot's failure to use the plane's ice protection systems led to ice accumulation and an aerodynamic stall at a higher airspeed than would occur without ice accumulation. Once the airplane stalled, its altitude was too low to recover. In icy conditions, a plane needs to maintain a higher airspeed to avoid a stall than in normal conditions. Because the ice protection systems were not activated, Dr. Rosenberg's airspeed display did not accurately indicate the adjusted stall warning speed for the conditions. The primary flight display of the EMB 500 features an airspeed tape with low airspeed awareness indicators to inform the pilot of the minimum airspeed they need to maintain to avoid aerodynamic stall of the aircraft. These indicators include a red band, the top of which denotes the airspeed for the activation of the oral stall warning, and a yellow band which marks an airspeed 3 knots faster. In normal conditions, the oral stall warning for the EMB 500 would activate at 87 knots, but in wintry conditions, ice accumulation can lead to an aerodynamic stall at higher airspeeds. To account for this, when the plane's ice protection systems are activated, the low airspeed awareness indicators on the primary flight display increase, with the oral stall warning activating at 102 knots. However, since Dr. Rosenberg did not have these systems activated at the time of the crash, his primary flight display indicated a minimum airspeed of 87 knots, rather than 102 knots. As such, Dr. Rosenberg unknowingly allowed the plane's speed to decrease to a dangerous rate, and the oral stall warning in the cockpit did not sound until the speed had decreased below the warning speed for a plane in normal conditions, rather than icy conditions. The NTSB could not determine why Dr. Rosenberg did not turn on the ice protection systems, even though they were required to be activated for the conditions by the EMB 500 airplane flight manual, and the use of the ice protection systems was covered in the training for the aircraft that Dr. Rosenberg had completed. It is most likely that Dr. Rosenberg was either distracted by the workload of the approach phase of the flight and forgot to activate the systems, or he did not recognize the importance of the systems in the present situation. In addition to his failure to activate these essential systems, the NTSB investigation found that Dr. Rosenberg failed to perform pre-flight checks of the aircraft in accordance with standard operating procedures and had used incorrect occupant and cargo weights when determining the weight and balance of the aircraft and in selecting the target landing speed. While these additional factors did not directly contribute to the accident, they suggest a general degree of carelessness regarding Dr. Rosenberg's actions as a pilot. Dr. Rosenberg had been flying planes since 1975 and held an FAA Airline Transport Pilot Certificate with single and multi-engine land ratings. He also was a licensed flight instructor for single-engine planes. He received a type rating for the EMB 500 airplane earlier that year on April 28, 2014. FAA records indicate that Dr. Rosenberg was involved in a previous accident in May 2010 at the very same Montgomery County Airport. While piloting a Socata TBM 700, he attempted a go-around. A go-around is an aborted landing, which might be initiated for a number of reasons, such as a dangerous approach or the presence of an obstruction on the landing runway. However, during his attempted go-around, Dr. Rosenberg lost control of the aircraft and wound up crashing into the trees off the left side of the runway. As a result of the accident, the FAA conducted a re-examination of Dr. Rosenberg's abilities as a pilot, which he passed. Dr. Rosenberg's electronic logbook showed a cumulative 4,737 flight hours as of the last entry in November 2014. However, only 136 of them came in an Embraer EMB 500. One of the flight instructors who trained Dr. Rosenberg on the operation of the EMB 500 characterized him as highly motivated and intelligent, but that he sometimes had difficulty with planning and could become task-saturated, freezing up and fixating on a particular task at the expense of others. He stated that because the pilot was highly intelligent and accomplished, he seemed to overestimate his own ability and underestimate some aviation-related risks. As an example, he recounted an instance in which Dr. Rosenberg had requested an abbreviated training course on the EMB 500, even though he did not have sufficient aviation experience to become proficient in piloting the aircraft through such a course. The instructor insisted Dr. Rosenberg complete the full course. By all accounts, Dr. Rosenberg was a good husband, friend, and prolific medical researcher, but his carelessness and hubris as a pilot led to his own death and to the deaths of 5 other people. Dr. David Hartman was a passenger in the plane. Dr. Hartman earned his PhD from Ohio State University and served as the Vice President of Clinical Pharmacology, Pharmacokinetics, and Non-Clinical Development at Nuventia Pharma Sciences. He was remembered as a compassionate, brilliant, and spiritual man who enjoyed music and playing basketball. He is survived by his wife Janet and his 2 children, Elaine and Andrew. Chijioke Agbuka, who went by Chiji, was another passenger in the plane. Chiji was a doctoral candidate at St. Louis University Center for Healthcare Ethics. In addition to working on his PhD dissertation, he was an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland, a bioethics lecturer at the University of St. Mary, and he was employed by Dr. Rosenberg's company, Health Decisions. Chiji was gifted at connecting to his students and colleagues alike. Chiji was recently married, and his wife was pregnant at the time of the accident. The house that was impacted by the plane and ignited by the post-crash fire was inhabited by the Gemmel family. Home at the time were Marie Gemmel, her 3-year-old son Cole, and infant Devin. All 3 were killed as Marie attempted to shield her children from the smoke and flames that had suddenly engulfed them. They are survived by husband and father Ken Gemmel and daughter Arabelle. Marie was highly active in her community and volunteered her time for the nonprofit organization Connor Cures, fighting childhood cancer. In their obituary, the Gemmel family requested donations to Connor Cures in lieu of flowers, and a link to their website is in the description if you would like to make a donation in honor of the Gemmel family. In their report, the NTSB made several suggestions as a result of their findings. The first was that pilots would benefit from a system that provides automatic alerting when the ice protection systems should be activated. Such a system would alleviate the burden of tasks pilots are required to recall and perform, and would be especially helpful for amateur pilots who don't fly often, or for single pilots who don't have a co-pilot to verify everything is in order. The second recommendation by the NTSB was that pilots of similar airplanes would benefit from training beyond what was required to pass a check ride. Although Dr. Rosenberg had completed the minimum required training in the EMB 500 as well as a check ride, he demonstrated significant weaknesses in his capabilities and would have benefited from additional training. In 2017, Ken Gemmel agreed to an undisclosed settlement in a wrongful death lawsuit he had filed against Embraer, the estate of Dr. Rosenberg, his company Health Decisions, as well as Sage Aviation LLC, the registered owner of the plane. The estates of Chijioke Agbuka and David Hartman also filed wrongful death lawsuits against Embraer, Rosenberg's estate, and Sage Aviation. Court records show their cases were voluntarily dismissed. This may be because they agreed to settlements as well, but I wasn't able to find confirmation of such. In 2019, Ken Gemmel announced he was teaming up with the Where Angels Play Foundation to build a playground in honor of Marie, Cole, and Devin. Thank you for watching my video. I would like to continue making short documentaries of aviation and marine accidents. If you enjoyed this one and would like to see more, please subscribe so you'll be notified when I upload in the future. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you.